Hello and welcome to Prelims Practice 2020. This is the second video under Environment section. Now in this video, we are going to discuss past year question papers related to species, protected areas, chemical pollutants as well as possibilities section. Now if you analyze the past year question papers, you will find that under Environment section, UPSC has asked questions related to both static as well as current topics, and hence it becomes important for us to shape our preparation in this way, and that has been kept in mind while designing this video. Apart from that, the same philosophy has been followed while making the Compass magazine on environment, which is going to be released within 2 to 3 days. Apart from the reading, solving question is also important, because a lot of questions in the environment section can be easily solved with the help of elimination, and edge in the elimination comes from a lot of practice, and hence it is advisable that you solve a lot of questions related to environment section. Let's now begin the discussion
with the question asked in UPSC examination related to species. Now, as we saw in the discussion over distribution of questions of past years, you must have noticed the significant portion allocated to species related questions in environment section, and hence it becomes important to discuss few of those questions. So we will discuss 4 of them right now. Now the first question which we have taken was asked in 2019. Consider the following pairs. So on the left hand side, the species is mentioned and you have to tell that which of them are correctly matched. Now the pair first is blue-finned mahashir found in Kaveri river. Statement 2, Airavati dolphin found in Chambal river, and option 3 is rusty spotted cat found in Eastern Ghats. So after looking at the question, you might think that for successfully answering this question, you need to have an information about all 3 species. But it is not true, because Airavati dolphin appears in newspapers frequently, and Airavati dolphin is a critically endangered species. It is found near sea coast and in estuaries and rivers in parts of Bay of Bengal and Southeast Asia. So just by being in touch with the newspaper, you already know that Airavati dolphin cannot be found in Chambal river, and hence this will lead to the rejection of statement 2. Let's see whether we are able to solve this question just on this information. So just on the basis of statement 2 being incorrect, you are able to reject A, B and D. And now you see that you are left with only option C, which is the right answer, which means that blue-finned mahashir is found in Kaveri river and rusty spotted cat is found in Eastern Ghats. So an important takeaway from this question is that for solving a UPSC question successfully, it is not important that you must be aware of all the options, but rather few options can lead you to the right answer. Let's now discuss the next question. So just like a question asked in 2019, the question asked in 2012 was also based on similar lines. The question read, consider the following. Species 1, black-necked crane, species 2, cheetah, species 3, flying squirrel, and species 4, snow leopard. Which of the above are naturally found in India? Now again, there is no need for you to memorize these species and their range countries, because the statement 2 is cheetah, and you know that cheetah is extinct in India. And let's try to first solve this question on the basis of this information. Since cheetah is extinct in India, the right answer cannot include cheetah. So let's see what are those options. Now after analyzing, we see that option A is rejected, C is rejected and D is rejected because they contain 2, that is cheetah, and hence you are left with right answer B, which is 1, 3 and 4. Black-necked crane, flying squirrel and snow leopard all are naturally found in India except cheetah. So these 2 questions teach us that if you have a solid information about any of the option, then you should try to approach by eliminating other options on the basis of those statements. And generally UPSC frames questions in such a way that you can arrive at the right answer just on the basis of 1 or 2 statements being correct or incorrect. Let's now move on to the next question. Now, this question was asked in 2015 with reference to dugong, a mammal found in India. Which of the following statements are correct? Statement 1. It is a herbivorous marine animal. Statement 2. It is found along the entire coast of India. And Statement 3. It is given legal protection under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Now, as far as these statements are concerned, the statement 1 is correct. Now, dugong dugan feeds on sea grasses and it is found mainly in lagoon and bays. And in India, its population is restricted to Gulf of Mannar and Park Bay. So the statement 2 is incorrect as it is not found along the entire coast of India. Whereas it is correct that it has been given legal protection under the Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act, which means that it gets the highest level of protection an animal can get in the country, which leads us to the right answer. 1 and 3 both are correct, which is C. Now you know that there are a lot of species in our country and it is humanly not possible to cover such a details about each and every one of them, and hence there needs to be an objective criteria which leads us to important species. And that criteria is that if that species is included in Wildlife Protection Act Schedule 1, or if that species is included in the list of those species for which the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change runs species recovery program. And dugong dugan is one such animal which is included both in Wildlife Protection Act Schedule 1 as well as species recovery program. Similarly, Ganges river dolphins is also one such animal which is not only included in Wildlife Protection Act Schedule 1 but also under Species Recovery Program. So you can see that whenever UPSC has asked very specific questions, those species are very important, and that is denoted by their inclusion in the two lists which I have mentioned. Let us now discuss the next question. Now the question reads, other than poaching, what are the possible reasons for the decline in population of Ganges river dolphin? Statement 1. Construction of dams and barrages on rivers. Statement 2. Increase in the population of crocodiles in rivers. Statement 3. Getting trapped in fishing nets accidentally. And Statement 4. Use of synthetic fertilizers and other agricultural chemicals in crop fields in the vicinity of rivers. So again, from the first look of the question, it appears that you need to be aware of all these statements and their veracity. But just reading out these statements, you need to focus on statement number 2, which says that increase in the population of crocodiles in rivers is one of the threats to Ganges river dolphins. Now, from the static knowledge of your environment and ecology, you can understand that there is no such antagonistic relationship between Ganges river dolphins and crocodiles in rivers. Crocodiles and Ganges river dolphins can exist simultaneously, and even if there is some confrontation, that is not to that great extent which might lead to downfall in the numbers of Ganges river dolphins. After all, many other predators live simultaneously, for example, tigers and deers. So statement 2 is clearly wrong. And by paying attention to the options, keeping in mind that statement 2 is incorrect, you can easily see that statement A, statement B, statement D are wrong, which leaves us with one and only option correct, and that is C. 1, 3 and 4, all these three are responsible for decline in the population of Ganges river dolphins. So let us discuss, but nonetheless we shall discuss them. So construction of dams and barrages on the rivers fragments the population of dolphin. So if a river is flowing continuously downslope and if we construct a dam over here which leads to the formation of reservoir in this area, what this will do is that it will create a second population which will be separated from the population of dolphin downstream. And similarly, more number of barrages will lead to more segregation, which will eventually cause the downfall in their numbers. Statement 3 is very commonsensical, as getting trapped in fishing nets is a real threat for dolphins and it continuously appears in the newspaper for this reason. And statement 3 is also correct because apart from fertilizers, a lot of toxic chemicals like pesticides and insecticides are also used, which are then carried over to the river in the form of surface flows, which ultimately results in the death of Ganges river dolphin and many other species living in rivers. So you can understand that the questions asked from the species section in environment are fairly easy and can be easily solved by basic information and use of common sense. So let us now solve few practice questions on species. So just like the questions asked in UPSC Prelims examination, we have framed two practice questions. Now let's take up the first question. With reference to edible nest swiftlet, a bird found in India, which of the following statements are correct? Statement 1, it is found all across the country. Statement 2, its nest is made of solidified saliva and is used to make bird's nest soup. And statement 3 is, it is given legal protection under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Now, edible nest swiftlet becomes important because it is not only enlisted in Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act 1972, but it is also a high priority bird as far as the species recovery program is concerned, and hence the question has been framed. So statement 1 is wrong because it is not found all across the country, but it is limited to the island of Andaman and Nicobar, and its range starts from Andaman and Nicobar and extends up to Indonesian islands. So statement 1 is wrong. Similarly, statement 2 is correct because you can easily derive this statement from the word of the bird itself, which says edible nest swiftlet. So this bird is peculiar in the sense it makes its nest. Its nest is made out of the solidified saliva derived from the bird itself, and it is used in a famous cuisine in our Andaman island to make bird's nest soup. And as we just discussed, that it is a high priority animal and it has been enlisted in Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act 1972, which leads us to the right answer C. Both 2 and 3 are correct, but 1 is incorrect. Let us take up the second practice question. With reference to Sangai deer, which of the following statements are correct? Statement 1, it is found only in Manipur, India. Statement 2, it is the state animal of Manipur. Statement 3, its original natural habitat is the floating marshy grasslands. Now, Sangai deer, or also known as brow antler deer, is found only in Manipur, and that too in a very limited region surrounding Loktak Lake, and hence statement 1 is correct. It is also the state animal of Manipur, and hence statement 2 is also correct. Now, one of the peculiar things which you should always keep in mind as far as Sangai deer is concerned, that it is found in its natural habitat only at Kebul Lamjau National Park, which is situated in Loktak Lake, and it keeps on hopping from one island to another, which are also known as Fumdis in the Loktak Lake. So statement 3 is also correct, which leads us to the right answer D, 1, 2 and 3. Now, the wild water buffalo, also called Asian buffalo, is a large bovine native to Indian subcontinent as well as Southeast Asia. So the question has been formed on this species. Other than poaching, what are the possible reasons for the decline in the population of wild water buffalo? Statement 1, interbreeding with domestic buffaloes. Statement 2, encroachment of floodplain areas. Statement 3, degradation of wetlands due to invasive species. Now, as the name suggests, wild water buffalo is a buffalo which likes to stay in wetlands or very near to them. So obviously, encroachment of floodplains and degradation of wetlands due to invasive species is obviously a reason which is leading to decline in the population of these wild water buffaloes. So statement B and statement D can be correct because they both contain 2 and 3. Now, as far as statement 1 is concerned, it is also correct because hybridization or the interbreeding or the crossbreeding of wild water buffalo with those other buffaloes which have been domesticated by Indians is one of the major causes which is resulting into drastic downfall in their numbers. So all three statements 1, 2, 3 are correct, which leads us to the right answer D. So with this we have come to the end of section on species. Let's now move on to the next one. We'll start the discussion on protected areas with a question asked in 2013. Now on the left hand side, a list of national park has been given, whereas on the right hand side, rivers flowing through these parks have been given, and you have been asked to tell which of these pairs are correctly matched. So the first pair is that Ganga river passes through Corbett National Park. Now this is incorrect as the river which passes through Corbett National Park is Ram Ganga. So the next pair is that whether Manas river passes through Kaziranga National Park or not. And this is also incorrect as Kaziranga National Park lies on the banks of Brahmaputra river and not Manas river. And similarly, the last pair is that whether Kaveri river passes through Silent Valley National Park or not. And this is also incorrect as the river which passes through Silent Valley National Park situated in Kerala is Kundipuza, which drains finally into Bharatpuza river. And hence all of the pairs are incorrect, which leads us to the right answer D, none. So you can see that the details into which the UPSC can go while asking questions on protected areas. So it is important for you to memorize few of the important tiger reserves, national parks, their locations and the important rivers which passes through them. So along the same line in 2014, a question was asked, consider the following pairs. On the left hand side, there is a list of wetlands and on the right hand side, the confluence of rivers have been mentioned. And you have been asked to tell which of these pairs are correctly matched. So the first pair is that whether Harike wetland lies on the confluence of Beas and Satluj or not. And this is absolutely correct. And Harike wetland is also important because the Grand Indira Gandhi Canal in Rajasthan is fed from this source. Moving on to the next pairs, Keoladev Ghan National Park lies on the confluence of Banas and Chambal or not. And this is incorrect. Banas and Chambal meet each other quite southwest of where the Keoladev Ghan National Park is located. Similarly, the last pair is also incorrectly matched because Koleru Lake does not lie on the confluence of Musi and Krishna River, which leads us to the right answer A, one only. So you can see that the practice of static geography map locations is very important even in environment. Now the question was asked in 2019. Which of the following are in Agasthamala Biosphere Reserve? And the right answer is option A, Nayyar, Peppara and Shendurni Wildlife Sanctuary and Kalakkad Muduntharai Tiger Reserve. So this also brings us to a very important component of environment preparation, which is memorizing important biosphere reserves in our country. There are only few of them and it becomes very important that you not only memorize the components like wildlife sanctuaries, tiger reserves and national parks contained within these biosphere reserves, but also their locations. Similarly, a question was asked in 2019 again, which one of the following national parks lies completely in the temperate alpine zone? Statement A, Manas National Park. Statement B, Namdapha National Park. Statement C, Neora Valley National Park and Statement D, Valley of Flowers National Park. Now what does alpine zone means? Now alpine climate is a typical weather or climate which are observed in the regions which are situated above or beyond the tree line. So most of the flora in these locations are seasonal plants. So as we discussed in the last two questions, that it becomes important for us to memorize the locations of these national parks. And once you have memorized these locations, you can easily say that Manas National Park and Neora Valley National Park cannot be the correct answer because the altitude of these national parks are very low. Similarly, Namdapha National Park is situated in Arunachal Pradesh. So although it has a significant portion lying above the temperate alpine zone, but it does not completely lies above the tree line and hence this cannot be the correct answer, which leads us to the right answer, Valley of Flowers National Park. Now connect this question with the question asked in 2015, which one of the following national parks has a climate that varies from tropical to subtropical, temperate and arctic? So the question wants to test your knowledge not only regarding your locations but also regarding how you understand the concept of altitudinal variation of these climate types. For example, if your park is situated in a tropical region and if you increase the altitude, what you will get is a subtropical climate. And further increasing the altitude will lead us to the temperate type, and finally you will have an arctic type of climate right at the top if there is a sufficient altitude. And the last question will come handy for us in solving this question because Neora Valley National Park and Nanda Devi National Park are easily rejectable because of the low altitude in the prior case and high altitude in the later case. And similarly, Kanchenjunga National Park cannot be the right answer also. And hence we are left with the Namdapha National Park, which has such a variation starting from tropical and ending at Arctic. So you can see that the question asked in UPSC examination not only deal with the location but also with the climate types as well as various kinds of components of these protected areas. So it is advisable that when you are preparing for prelims examination, keep these things into mind. So let us now begin the discussion with two practice questions on protected areas. Now the question number 4 has been designed along the similar lines as the UPSC has asked them. On the left hand side, you have the list of protected areas, whereas on the right hand side, you have rivers and you are asked to identify which of them are correctly matched, which means that you have to tell that whether these rivers on the right hand side pass through these protected areas or not. So let us start with the first pair, which says that Narmada River passes through Panchmari Biosphere Reserve. Now this statement is incorrect, as you can see on the map that Panchmari Biosphere Reserve is located in Madhya Pradesh on Satpura ranges, and the river which passes through this biosphere reserve is Tawa River, which is a tributary of Narmada River but not Narmada River itself. So the statement 1 is incorrect. Similarly, the second pair is also incorrect because Nokrik Biosphere Reserve is situated in Meghalaya, whereas Brahmaputra does not passes through the state of Meghalaya, and hence this cannot be the right answer. The third statement, Panna Tiger Reserve passes through Ken River, is correct, as you can see on the map that it is the same river which passes through the Panna Tiger Reserve, which leads us to the right answer B, 3 only. Let's now solve the next practice question. Consider the following statements about Simlipal Biosphere Reserve. Statement 1. It is both a tiger reserve as well as elephant reserve. Statement 2. It is a part of UNESCO World Network of Biosphere Reserves. And statement 3. Some part of this reserve lies inside Jharkhand also. So it is important for you to have basic information about Simlipal National Park, or also known as Biosphere Reserve. Now it is unique in the sense that it is not only a national park, a tiger reserve and biosphere reserve, but also an elephant reserve, and hence the statement 1 is correct. Now it lies in Mayurbhanj district of Odisha, and hence statement 3 is incorrect as it completely lies within Odisha and no part of Simlipal Tiger Reserve touches Jharkhand. The protected area has been included in UNESCO World Network of Biosphere Reserves since 2009, and hence statement 2 is also correct, which leads us to the right answer 1 and 2 only. Let us now start the discussion with practice question number 6. Which of the following are in Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve? Now it is similar to the question that was asked in 2019, and options for this question has not been changed except for the front line. And you see that in 2019, the question about Agastya Mala Biosphere Reserve was asked. And right now, the question asks which of the following are in Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. And the right answer is that Muddumalai National Park, Satyamangalam Tiger Reserve, Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary and Silent Valley National Park lies inside Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. Apart from these, Nagarhole and Bandipur Tiger Reserve also lies into Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. So this question, along with the question asked in 2019, should give you a clear idea that how you have to memorize these biosphere reserves which are in India. Now the question number 7, consider the following statements about protected areas in India. Statement 1, national parks correspond to IUCN protected area category 2. Statement 2, wildlife sanctuaries correspond to IUCN protected area category 4. And statement 3, biosphere reserves correspond to IUCN protected area category 5. So it is important for you to have a clear idea as to what these national parks, wildlife sanctuaries and biosphere reserves correspond to as far as IUCN protected areas categories are concerned. International Union for Conservation of Nature has given out protected area management categories, according to which it classifies various kinds of protected areas into category 1 to 5. Now, the enlisting of such area is a part of the strategy toward the conservation of the world's natural environment and biodiversity. And IUCN has developed these categories to define, record, and classify the wide variety of specific aims and concerns when categorizing protected areas and their objectives. In case of India, the definitions to these national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves are derived from Wildlife Protection Act 1972, but they also correspond to the categories of IUCN. The national parks in India correspond to IUCN category 2, and hence this statement is correct. Now, since it is not category 1, instead category 2, which means that these national parks are lenient as compared to those parks enlisted in category 1, and hence they tend to be more lenient with human visits as well as about creation of infrastructure. Now, similarly, wildlife sanctuaries correspond to IUCN category number 4. Now, IUCN category 4 is specifically created for protection of a particular species, and IUCN nomenclature denotes category 4 areas as species management area, and its focus is directed towards conservation of very specific species, and hence this statement 2 is also correct. Similarly, statement 3 is also correct as biosphere reserves correspond to category 5 of IUCN, which means that protected landscape or area. Now, category 5 areas cover an entire body of land or ocean with an explicit natural conservation plan, but usually also accommodate a range of for-profit activities. Now, the main objective of this category areas is to safeguard regions that have built up a distinct and valuable ecological, biological, cultural, or scenic character. Now, in contrast to categories 1, 2, 3, and 4, category 5 permits surrounding communities to interact more with the area, and hence it is the most lenient of all these categories. And hence, statement 3 is also correct, which leads us to the right answer D, 1, 2, and 3. Let us now start the discussion with the question asked about the chemical pollutants. Now, a lot of questions have been asked from various kinds of pollutions and pollutants. We have taken these two specific questions asked in 2014 and in 2016. So let us begin the discussion with the one asked in 2016. In the cities of our country, which among the following atmospheric gases are normally considered in calculating the value of Air Quality Index 2016? Statement 1, carbon dioxide. Statement 2, carbon monoxide. Statement 3, nitrogen dioxide. Statement 4, sulfur dioxide. And statement 5, methane. Now, this question was asked in 2016 prelims examination, whereas in 2014, National Air Quality Index was launched by Environment Ministry. Now, the Air Quality Index considers 8 pollutants, 2 kinds of particulate matters that are PM 2.5 and 10, and 5 kinds of gases which are nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, ozone, ammonia, and 1 kind of metal that is lead or Pb. So you can see that out of all these options, only 2, 3 and 4 are considered in calculating the value of air quality index, and hence the right answer is B. So from this question, an important takeaway is that you should pay utmost attention to various initiatives taken by the government of India, and especially given that air quality index was first such initiative from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change to publish data on air quality for the first time. It became very important for that prelims as well. Similarly, in 2014, the question was asked, which of the following are some important pollutants released by steel industry in India? Statement 1, oxides of sulfur. Statement 2, oxides of nitrogen. Statement 3, carbon monoxide. And statement 4, carbon dioxide. Now, as you know, that iron and steel sector is regarded as the core of Indian economy. It plays a crucial role in our infrastructural development as well. But at the same time, the same industry is extremely polluting as well, as it releases large amount of pollutants into the air during all its processes, be it while handling raw material or producing iron and steel or disposing the solid waste. Apart from particulate matter, other main pollutants are oxides of sulfur, nitrogen and carbon, which means that all these options are correct, which leads us to the right answer D 1, 2, 3 and 4. So let us solve this 8th question based on fugitive particulate matter emissions, a term which was used recently by Niti Aayog in their report on clean industry. So the question is, with reference to fugitive particulate matter emissions, which of the following statements are correct? Statement 1, they are particulate matter emissions which die out shortly after being released. And statement 2, volatile organic compounds form an important component of fugitive particulate matter emissions. So let us first understand what fugitive particulate matter emissions are. Now, air pollutants originating from spatially distributed sources and wide array of activities as opposed to specific discharge points such as exhaust and stacks are called fugitive emissions, which basically means that all those particulate matter emissions for which we cannot track their source as they are so diffused and distributed, those are known as fugitive particulate matter emissions. And hence, the statement 1 is incorrect. The criteria for categorizing some emissions into fugitive is not that they die out shortly after being released, rather, it is the exact source for these emissions cannot be tracked. Now, fugitive emissions have the potential for much greater ground level impact since they are discharged and dispersed very close to the ground. And according to Niti Aayog, the two main types of fugitive emissions are particulate matter and volatile organic compounds, and hence statement 2 is correct, which leads us to the right answer B, 2 only. Similarly, Bharat's standards also become very important, and hence the question has been framed on this topic. Consider the following statements about BS6. Statement 1, it is notified by Central Pollution Control Board. Statement 2, it will be mandatory for all the vehicles in the country. Now you know that Bharat stage emission standards are emission standards instituted by Government of India to regulate the output of air pollutants from compression ignition engines as well as spark ignition engines equipments. Now these standards and timelines for their implementation are notified by Central Pollution Control Board, and hence the statement 1 is correct. Now it is important for you to realize that these standards are inspired by a similar kinds of regulations put by European Union, and those are known as Euro types. For example, Euro 1, Euro 2, just like BS1 and BS2. Now as you know that these norms are progressively stringent, which means that BS6 will be more stringent than BS4. An important piece of information regarding these BS6 norms are that it will not be mandatory for all the vehicles in the country because armored and other specialized vehicles of Indian Armed Forces and paramilitary forces have been exempted from applying these BS6 standards, and hence statement 2 is incorrect, which leads us to the right answer A, 1 only. Let us now move on to the last section of environment, and that is the questions which are asked related to possibilities of various kinds. Now, if you have looked at the last year question papers, you must have realized that in environment section, a lot of questions are asked in which one of the situations are given and you are asked to analyze that which of the following could be the possible consequences. And such situations can deal from climate change, global warming, to pollution, to ocean acidification. And similarly, this question has been taken from 2012 prelims examination, which reads, what would happen if phytoplankton of an ocean is completely destroyed for some reason? Statement 1. The ocean as a carbon sink would be adversely affected. Statement 2. The food chains in the ocean would be adversely affected. Statement 3. The density of ocean water would drastically decrease. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. Now, as you know that phytoplanktons are the primary producers of our ocean, and all the food chains depend upon how the productivity of phytoplanktons is. Now, as phytoplanktons are autotrophs, which means that they can produce food and they contain chlorophyll, which they utilize for production of biomass, and hence the sudden disappearance of phytoplanktons from the ocean would adversely affect the carbon sink, as just like deforestation on the land would lead to the reduction of carbon sink, and hence the statement 1 is obviously correct. As we discussed the concept of food chains, where we saw that how the primary producers or the autotrophs form the base of any food chain, and since phytoplanktons being the base in the ocean, the food chains in the ocean would be adversely affected or even completely destroyed, and hence the second statement is also correct. Now, as far as the third option is concerned, it is incorrect because the density of the ocean water depends on water density as well as the density of the dissolved solute in the water, for example sodium chloride, calcium carbonate, and various other salts which are dissolved in the water. Since phytoplanktons are not dissolved in the water, their appearance or disappearance will have no impact on the density of ocean water. Hence, this statement is incorrect, and this leads us to the right answer A, 1 and 2 only. So these kinds of questions require a lot of conceptual clarity, and that can be achieved via rigorous reading of NCERT biology as well as the portions of environment from geography NCERT. So on this line, we will solve the practice question 10, which reads, what would happen if average global temperatures rise by more than 2 degrees Celsius? Statement 1, ocean acidification will increase, and statement 2, crop productivity may rise. Now you know that the global efforts are being made to contain the increase in temperature by less than 2 degrees Celsius under the Paris Climate Deal. Now the natural question which arises is that what will happen if they will rise further, and even by 2 degrees Celsius there will be consequences, and these two consequences are that ocean acidification will increase. Ocean acidification, you know, is a decrease in the pH level of ocean's waters, which are basically caused by the uptake of a lot of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Now, as the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere increases, and due to the exchange going on between the atmosphere and the ocean, this leads to an increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide in the water of oceans, and hence will lead to ocean acidification. So as the global temperatures rise, they rise mainly because the concentration of greenhouse gases and especially the carbon dioxide is increasing, and that will lead to ocean acidification, and hence this statement 1 is correct. Now the second statement is that crop productivity may rise, and this is quite baffling. But this is also true because the higher level of carbon dioxide will stimulate photosynthesis in certain plants, and especially in the plants which depend on C3 mechanism of photosynthesis. Now, as you know that C3 plants are those plants where the product of their first biochemical reaction during photosynthesis has 3 carbon atoms. Now, increased carbon dioxide tends to suppress photorespiration in these plants, making them more water efficient. Now, almost all the staple food diets such as wheat, rice, and soya bean are dependent on C3 mechanism for photosynthesis, and hence the increase in carbon dioxide will lead to increased productivity of these crops, and hence both statement 1 and 2 are correct. With this, we have come to the end of the discussion on environment. Stay tuned on Rao's Eyes Study Circle YouTube channel for more videos of Prelims Practice 2020.